Welcome to the very first inaugural episode of the Wingin It podcast. We are probably the only two people that are stupid enough to be doing this on the 20th of July at 7 a.m. sharp. Coming out here to do some scouting, clearing out some shooting lanes, and working on getting some ground mowed, raked, and sprayed for some food plots that'll hopefully be going in middle to end of August. A little bit early on that, but we decided to come out here and do it anyway while we've got time. But yeah, this is the first episode, guys. We're looking forward to it. Every Sunday we'll be out here, and I guess we'll kick it off with the introductions. If you want to take the mic, sir.
Yeah, I'm Austin. I'm from Oklahoma, southern Oklahoma. I've been hunting with Caleb for, I don't know how long would you say, maybe 9 or 10 years. Honestly,
Yeah, honestly, I think we're probably right around a decade.
I actually met Caleb in graphic design school. He was doing IT and I was doing graphic design when we were probably 16 or 17 maybe. But that's how we ended up being buddies, and we kind of didn't like each other at first, and then it came to a point we got to talking about hunting and fishing, and then 10 years later, this is where we're at.
Now we're in love.
Yeah, we're in love now. Yeah, I guess you could call it a romance.
A bromance, if you will.
Yeah. But if you ask my girlfriend, she'd call Caleb my boyfriend. But yeah, I've been hunting, almost my entire life. You can't really say, I'm 27 years old, but you can't say 27 years. But ever since I was old enough to pick up a gun or a bow, that was part of my personality as growing up. I've done a little bit of everything in the last, 10 years. Meeting Caleb is when I've really gotten into waterfowl hunting, and deer hunting was pretty much my whole life. So whenever I started waterfowl hunting, it was just a little bit more of a challenge, something new to learn, and now I've got a duck dog, and we do all kinds of stuff, and something that we love. So yeah, that's kind of my story. But.
And I am Caleb. I'm also from southern Oklahoma, a lot further south than Austin actually, but moved up here and started going to school around 8th grade, and like he said, met him in the Votech. We've been buddies ever since. Got him and another buddy into waterfowl hunting, and he got me more into deer hunting actually, and just kind of been kicking it ever since. I've been hunting for I've been going on duck hunts since I was like 7 or 8, man. So it's been a hot minute, and I've been deer hunting since before that. Not actually shooting or anything, just hanging out in the blind with my dad and stuff like that. Until I was old enough to do it myself, and here within the last 5 or 6 years, switched pretty much to just strictly bow hunting. I just can't bring myself to hunt with a gun, man. I just can't do it.
Well, unfortunately, that might be my case this year. Had a little accident back in was it August? Maybe? I want to say it was last August.
Yeah.
I was doing some duck dog training. Well, my dog, he has a little bit of a drive, and he wasn't fully trained yet, and he decided that he wanted to take off when I had a hold of him on the leash, and ended up breaking my shoulder and tore my bicep and my muscle right here on the side of my arm. But tried to pull a compound bow back just a couple days ago with Caleb, and I couldn't even hardly do it. So we're gonna go with a crossbow this year. We're gonna be doing a little bit of gun hunting. So I'm kind of excited to do it just because I haven't done it in a long time, because I've always used the excuse that I didn't want to hunt with a gun, that I just didn't like it.
Yeah.
This year my excuse is gonna be I can hunt with a gun. So we're gonna go from there, and we're still gonna have fun with it. So.
Oh yeah.
Caleb will be a little more on the bow side, and I'll be a little more on the gun side. Maybe muzzleloader season, you'll see me around a little more, but
yeah. So I guess we can start digging into our topics here. We're gonna kind of switch it up. I think the plan for the actual podcast is every Sunday or every other Sunday we'll kind of flip-flop topics. So like this Sunday we're talking about pretty much just deer, and then I think next Sunday we'll probably sit down and do a waterfowl podcast in a setting that's not hotter than 50 Shades of Dutch Love on the back of a truck bed.
Another couple of weeks, or another month or so, then we'll probably get a little more into waterfowl hunting. When it gets closer.
Oh yeah, yeah. Yeah, 100%.
Right now, there's just not a whole lot that you can do besides, you can obviously get your spots ready, but
Yeah.
that's about all you can do for now. And we deer hunting right now. I think probably more on the priority list as far as getting stuff ready to go and getting the deer moving in and kind of watching them, seeing where they're coming out and going in at. But we got a couple different spots to hunt this year, don't we?
Yeah, we've put the work in, put the hours in, door knocked, and we've gotten some permission to some really, really nice, beautiful properties. Real low hunting pressure, so that's a good thing. I mean, it should make for a banger of a season for both of us. My plan, my goal, I think probably everybody's goal is to limit out. I want to say limit out, tag out. We're not duck hunting here. I want to tag out this season, and I think this will be the first year ever that we've had that. I think that's perfectly feasible for both of us.
100%. I mean, it's definitely possible. With how many acres do you think? Probably.
So I've got permission, not counting your properties. We've got permission to 680.
Really? See, that's quite a bit, and on top of, I know I have my own little 40-acre plot that it's not much, but it's definitely something we're going to touch on this year, and see what's going through there. And I've always used it. I've always thought it was kind of a good place when the rut starts. You'll see a lot of these deer come across from other properties, and they're traveling a little bit more. So whenever that time comes, it's going to be kind of where we're at a little bit more, just because it'll be a good transition place for the deer this year. So
yeah, we're actually set up at the location where I shot my first real solid mature buck with my bow last season. This spot will always be a real special and memorable spot for me. It's going to be so much fun, man. We're going to be putting in a plot over here that's going to be mixed with some, I think there's some rape in there, some brassica, but I think it's predominantly clover. And I think the deer are really going to like it. I mean, we're actually filming on Bermuda grass right now, so there's Bermuda grass in here too. The deer are not going hungry, to say the least.
Yeah.
There's plenty of forage for them here, but I think having a little honey hole plot back there, not gonna go big, just like probably a half an acre, and it's gonna be kind of a weird shape. You think about food plots and you think about these 5 or 10 acre fields or pastures that are filled up with corn or soybeans and stuff. Well, like the name, we're winging it here. We don't have tractors. We don't have brush hogs. We don't have plows or tillers. We don't have any of that stuff. I mean, we're using hand tools. Over here to the left, we have a lawnmower, 2 rakes, a spray bottle, and a pole saw. And we're gonna turn this dream into reality with those tools. I think it's gonna be fun. And then I think you said you got a bag of something that had like radish and all kinds of other stuff in it, didn't you?
Yeah, I actually didn't bring that today though, just because it said, I was reading a little bit about it, and it's still a little too hot this year to start planting it. But it's kind of like Caleb said, it's one of those things like, realistically, a lot of these people, and I'm not bashing anybody, a lot of people, they have tractors and can make these big food plots and stuff like that. To me, I think part of the challenge is, going out here and doing just little stuff like this. Like Caleb said, they have plenty of forage out here. They're definitely not starving. So it's kind of one of those things we just have to get on them and see where they're transitioning, and see where they're going and see what they're doing. Really pattern these deer to make it a hunt. We've hunted a long time, and I've done it all different kinds of ways. I've tried almost anything and everything, and at the end of the day, you can say you're a hunter and this and that, but it's always a hunt, and you always have to know where those deer are, regardless if you put food plots or protein blocks or whatever it is out. A lot of those times when deer season comes upon us, those deer turn around and do a complete 360, and they might do something completely different than what you've patterned them since July. So we have a lot of big plans going, and I think that's really going to be a big part of it, is just kind of tracking these deer and seeing their movements and seeing their tendencies. I think that's going to be our best luck in getting tagged out this year.
Yeah, I agree. And that's one thing that's actually a really good topic to touch on, is like around this time, at least around Oklahoma, and the general surroundings is whenever it comes to late in July like this, you know, these bucks are on their summer travel schedule, which means wherever you've got the cameras right now and you're seeing bucks, I promise you, come October 1st, those deer are not going to be there. They're going to completely switch up. I mean, deer are like, I don't even know how to explain it. Deer have like a built-in almanac, dude. It's so
really
crazy.
do.
It's
They
so
really
cool
do.
seeing their instincts and their patterns just completely flip. Because they're going to come from working these travel corridors in the summer where they're going through a bunch of thick, nasty stuff to come end of October, you know, once we start getting some cold fronts and stuff like that, we're going to see these deer immediately go from the Bermuda grass and stuff like that they're eating on to the acorns. You know, they're going to be dropping everywhere. We're pretty much exclusively out here. We're hunting in oak sands, so there's going to be a ton of acorns dropping. There's a couple of persimmon trees back here and stuff. So like right now, I mean, I've got a camera set up back there, and the deer are tearing up the blackberries right now.
Oh yeah.
That's not going to be a thing on October 1st. As much as I wish it would be, it will not.
You know me, and you know how much I like to hunt in the woods. I mean, you know, I've always told Caleb, he's always been one that like preferred, you know, early season to kind of be out there on the edge of the field, because, you know, even though they still move, you know, a lot of times in early season they're still going to be transitioning to these open fields and these food plots later or earlier in the season, but they're going to be doing a little bit later at night, you know, closer to dark. I've always told Caleb, you know, like, I'm a big believer in white oaks. You know, you hear a lot of people say it, but white oak trees, if you can find some of those, a big group of those that are dropping some good acorns, I mean, you're almost guaranteed to see at least some deer, and if not, some big ones. You know, a lot of the times, that's where I find a lot of, not too far from those groups of white oaks, a lot of times where they bed at, you know, where I've found. And so if you can kind of get on that track, man, I think you'll do good every time, honestly. And that's where, you know, these food plots and stuff, they're not necessarily, you know, to help us out and give us a place to hunt over and really like be over top of the deer, but it's more so just to see their patterns and their tendencies and kind of track them as we go deeper into the woods and as it gets later into November and December. You know, that's where we're going to kind of be tracking them, is where they've come from previously. So just kind of going to see what they're doing, and, you know, hopefully it'll go pretty good for us.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think one of the biggest misconceptions around this time of year is that people will, yeah, I mean, and I used to be one of these people. I would go walking around and I would see an area where I saw a lot of deer sign, you know, like fresh, like whether it was poop on the ground or a fresh bed, and I would go, oh crap, you know, I need to put I need to put a plot in right here, I need to put corn down. Right now there's really no reason for corn. They're not going to be hitting corn, and any mature buck that I've ever seen isn't going to hit a feeder, or at least during the day.
Yeah, and it kind of depends on your location too, I would say. Like, you know, around where we're at, there tends to be a lot more pressure, just given that the properties that we hunt are so closely related to other properties. I mean, you know, even on a 200-acre place that you're hunting, you know, you still might have deer that are coming in from other properties on all four sides. So, you know, it's something to definitely think about. You know, like I said, it's just kind of one of those things. You just track them, and you kind of got to see what their patterns are, and that's really what it comes down to, man, for me.
Yeah.
It's kind of like you said, like you'll see the spots during the summertime, and you'll think like, oh, I need to be here, I need to be there, and you know, it's kind of one of those things. One week they're here, and 1 week they're there. You just have to pattern them.
Yeah, I agree. I actually, whenever it comes to like the different types of oaks and stuff like that, funnily enough, around here, I have hunted underneath several white oak trees. For whatever reason, they go to pin oaks.
Yeah.
Every time. Every property is going to be different, guys.
100%.
We're not telling you this stuff acting like we know it all, because at the end of the day, we're still like babies in the hunting world.
Oh, yeah.
You know, I'm 25. You're 27.
20. Yeah, I'm 27. You're 25.
Yeah. So we're still very, very young into this art.
Well, it's like I always say, even, you know, doing work and you know, I've done construction my whole life, or at least since I was 18, you know. And, it's kind of one of those things, like, if you're not learning something every day new, then, you know, you're messing up. That's the only way you can mess up, in my opinion, in hunting, is if you're not learning something new every day. You know, being being a hunter is just going out there and taking something from it that you can put towards your, you know, your life and your morals and things like that, because, you know, nature is unforgiving most of the time. So, as you know,
Oh, yeah.
but you know, it's one of those things you really have to have good sportsmanship, and you take into account all the things that, you know, that go into hunting and these deer and this wildlife. It's part of life, and it's something that we view as important, and it's not something that we just think, you know, you go out here and kill. It's more one of those things, kind of like Caleb said, we're at the place where he shot his first really mature buck, and that's kind of what we're after, you know. And he may not have been, you know, a 180 deer, but at the end of the day, that deer lived a long life, and he was getting towards the end of his years, and it's kind of one of those things, like, you really hunted a top trophy at the end of the day.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
That's
100%.
that's what brings me pride for it.
Yeah. Yeah. That buck would mean more to me than any 3-year-old 180.
All right.
I'll tell you that right now.
Yeah.
And that deer is not anything special by any means. I mean, he's really wide. He's got
a nice
solid
buck,
mass.
Yeah. I mean, he's a really nice buck.
Solid mass throughout the rack.
Yeah.
Wider than his ears, but he was just an old brute, man.
Yeah, 100%.
An old brute, and
Yeah.
that's exactly what I'm going for. I'm not really in it for the stereotypical phrase, you can't eat the antlers.
Yeah,
you know?
exactly. 100%.
And that's not my goal. It's not my motive. I'd love to kill a giant. You know, everybody wants a booner or a 200 incher,
100%.
but you know, it's not the goal out here. And I feel like everything that you just said embodied the true definition of woodsmanship. You know, there's woodsmen's, and then there's sportsmen, I guess.
Yeah, 100%.
Would be a proper way to put it.
Yeah, I guess you could say that.
Not knocking on any of the trophy hunters or anything out there, because if we had trophy quality deer, we'd be trying to kill those. You know?
Yeah, 100%.
But
we've hunted places that have trophy deer.
Yeah.
You know, like I'll tell Caleb this story, and you know, I went. Like I said, I've hunted my whole life, and I was hunting over in Tupelo, Oklahoma. And I don't know if you're familiar with Tupelo, or you know, down there around Clarita, kind of, you know, that there's typically quite a few big deer over that way.
Oh, yeah.
And I was hunting about, what was that place? Maybe 600 acres, probably.
I think
acres?
so. Yeah.
Yeah, and you know, I'd hunted it for a long time, since I was probably maybe 14 or 15 years old, and you know, I've hunted there a long time, and I've seen countless big deer come through. You know, I've tracked and patterned different deer, and that's why I'm really hoping this year is going to be good. And you know, I tell Caleb this story all the time. The one deer that made me quit deer hunting for a while, and he was this giant deer, man. I've hunted all year long, and I said this year I'm going to take the biggest one that I can get. And I said, if he's not over 180, I'm not going to take a deer. So, you know, I was hunting for a long time. I was going every single day, and it was when I first really got into compound hunting and compound bow hunting. I was going to college at the time. I was skipping my college classes. I definitely probably shouldn't have been doing that, but I had this deer on 4 different cameras in a span of a mile and a half almost, and he was on a time clock. It seemed like all the time. And you know, I'd got in there, and it seemed like every time I had got in there, he was at a different location, or he was at a different camera, and I could never get set up on him. And you know, it was closer towards the end of the season, and I was kind of getting down on my luck a little bit, and you know, I was skipping college, like I said, and then one day I decided, you know what, I'm gonna go ahead and go to college class this morning. And I looked on my camera about, I don't know, an hour later probably, and he was 7 yards from my stand, and I never saw him again on any of my cameras. And